everyone. Sorry, I had a little bit of a hiccup there. I don't know if I repeated myself, but nonetheless, here we go. Total sports talk, total football talk. Me and Eric are going to come up with a consensus on what we officially are here before we start the divisional playoff rounds. But that being said, I want to get into this a little bit. We're going to cover Week 17. We're going to cover NFL playoffs, and we're going to wrap it up with a little bit on some of the coaching stuff that's kind of been going on. And I've got a couple things I want to talk about the Rams. I got a stat, Eric, that may surprise you. Maybe it doesn't surprise you on Jared Goff that I was thinking about last night, and I think it's pretty impressive. And I'm going to do my annual why Jared Goff is underrated at the end of the year conversation. So that's going to be what you can look forward to. Let's start with Week 17. Bears right off the bat. Minnesota, once again, if the Rams could have just beaten Tampa Bay, if they could have just beaten Dallas, if they could have just won one of those close games, if frickin' Zerline's field goal goes through the uprights, we're talking Rams in the wild card against New Orleans and not Minnesota. But I digress. We're here, so Bears, Vikings, get into it.
Oh, by the way, hi guys, I'm here. Happy New Year to everyone out there.
Yeah.
So the game was a little closer than I originally thought. And, Mitch Trubisky struggled against the backup defense. Raise your hand if you're shocked. Okay, I'm not. Listen, that's what the Bears were going to come out. They were going to establish the run. Trubisky was going to pass, to the outside on Robinson all day. Allen Robinson, guys, go look at his numbers. He had one heck of a year in a Bears offense that ranked in the bottom 3 in terms of offense in the NFL in 2019. It was pretty bad. I mean, the Bears went 8-8. Listen, I'm ecstatic the Bears went 8-8. They could have gone 10-6. They could have gone 6-10. I predicted 12-4 at a Super Bowl trip to Miami, but goodness gracious, I'm going to get out of the prediction business because it doesn't pay that well. So the Bears came out and they established the field goal kicking unit. Hey, Eddie Pinheiro hit 4 field goals. He hit 11 of his last 11 field goals. There was always talk about, should we replace Pinheiro? Yes, I am talking about a freaking kicker right now. You go into the offseason, that's the last thing that you have to worry about as a kicker. Go in, when he comes in, you say, hey, Eddie, great job on the season this year. Yeah, you missed a few kicks. It happens. Come back stronger next year. You're our kicker moving forward. That's all you have to say. Then say, come back stronger next year. Work on your stuff that you do in the offseason. Come back stronger and better. That's all we're asking of you because we want you to be our kicker in Chicago. You proved you can do it. You can handle it. Okay? Listen, everybody misses kicks. Not exact science. Justin Tucker misses kicks. Miskowski misses kicks. Strive to be the best, and you will be. Okay? Give the kid a good pat on the butt. See him out the door. Because, again, that's the last position that you need to worry about on your team right now. You have holes everywhere. Offensive line, wide receiver, tight end, all that stuff was apparent throughout the whole season. So the Bears come out. Problem is, a bright spot on the Bears offense this year was Anthony Miller. Well, Cordell Patterson, after his first return for a kickoff, went out with a concussion. He actually ended up being rolled out. So the Bears are like, okay, Anthony Miller, you go and return kicks. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, this dude doesn't return kicks. I know you want to see what you have, but maybe that's what, I don't know, the preseason is for.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he returns a kick, and he probably injures his left shoulder, and he needs surgery now. Congratulations. So now the Bears are down to one healthy receiver, no kick returner, and they're using Javon Wims and Riley Ridley. Well, that's awesome, because I'll tell you, listen to these numbers. Mitch Trubisky was 26 for 37 for 207 yards. In the whole game. Dean Montgomery had a good game for the Bears. But I honestly, that's a lot of small, deep off passes to Tariq Cohen, a lot of wasted yards you could have had, and it should have been 26 for 37 for 307 yards. Honestly, I don't think it's Mitch's fault. I think Matt Nagy's holding him back. I think he's holding him back quite a bit. Like, roll him out if that's his strength. That's all you have to do. Just roll him out, play to his strengths, but you refuse to. The defensive side of the ball, yeah, the Bears didn't have their full complement of defense, but I'll tell you this, man. Danny Trevathan was our middle linebacker, or inside linebacker, however you want to call it, a 3-4-D, this year. And when he got injured, there's a kid, number 44, Big Kwiatkowski. Dude was all over the field. I mean, he was like a young Mike Singletary making plays where you wouldn't expect him to make plays before. There was another linebacker who was in for Roquan Smith. His name is Kevin Pierre-Louis. Dude was seriously like, he must have been taking energy pills before the game and during the game, because this guy was so all over the place that I thought that Kwiatkowski and Pierre-Louis were just going to beat the crap out of the whole Vikings defense by themselves. He was recovered fumbles. He was hitting guys behind the line of scrimmage. Bears got a safety, which actually was what helped them win. I don't know, there's some plays that they look like they can't be beaten, and there's some plays you're like, what the heck? There's like what a Pop Warner team does. No offense. I know you coach Pop Warner, Anthony.
No, I don't. I coach high school, you dork. Jeez.
But I will tell you that when watching the last drive of the Bears for their season, Trubisky on a 4th and 10 hit Riley Ridley down the right sideline for a 33-yard gain. It was a really nice pass. They rolled him out. Ridley got open. And if you know the name Ridley, it's Calvin Ridley's little brother for the Falcons. And so the Bears were inside the 10-yard line, and they handed it off to Montgomery with quite a bit of time left. And Montgomery just walked toward the 5-yard line. The Vikings were trying to let him score. I thought it was a thing of beauty, because Montgomery was like, well, come and tackle me, or I'm going to sit down because I'm not scoring. The Vikings are like, dude, score, please, come on, score. But I don't think the Vikings starting quarterback Sean Mannion would have let them downfield in that short amount of time anyways.
Yeah.
So they ended up kicking the field goal with 5 seconds left, and they ended up winning 21-19. It was hairy there for a minute, but the Bears not having a first-round draft pick, much like the Rams don't this year. I was glad they finished 8-8. They picked 19th in the draft. Coincidentally, the Rams picked 20th in the draft, but again, those picks go to somebody else. But the Bears ended 2019 with a win. I don't know how much you can really build off of it, but man, you got a lot of holes to fill, and we're going to get into a different show about what the Bears and Rams need to do next during the offseason to improve themselves. But yeah, it wasn't pretty at times this year being a Bear fan. So.
Well, I mean, with Chicago, they were an enigma all year, and it's fitting that they went 8-8 because there were games that they, looked like the Chicago Bears of a year ago, and then there were games this year they looked like they couldn't handle success. And at the end of the day, that inconsistency worked its way out to a very disappointing 8-8 season. I don't know, I didn't see a lot of the game, but, what I will say about Trubisky is, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of coaches out there like Harbaugh who are willing to go, you know what, franchise quarterback, yes, long-term, I don't care, let's just get this guy and his ability out there and utilize him to the best of our ability. If that means he has a shorter career, then he has a shorter career. There's a lot of quarterbacks that don't play until they're 40 years old. There's a lot of quarterbacks that don't play until they're 30 years old. There's some quarterbacks that barely make it to 30. My favorite quarterback in my young adult life, not my favorite quarterback of all time, but my favorite quarterback in my young adult life is Jake Plummer. And Jake Plummer played until he was about 32, 33 years old. I don't even think that. I think he was 31, 32. And then he walked away from the game. I followed that guy through college at ASU and all through his NFL career. I loved him. But his career was too brief. But you know what? The teams that got Jake Plummer, they utilized him the way Jake Plummer needed to be utilized to be successful. And that's why he led the Cardinals to the playoffs in 98 and beat Dallas. That's why he led Denver to the championship game after Elway had retired in 05. Elway had retired in 99 after the 98 season. But, to me, you got to utilize your quarterback skills. And if that means he has a shorter career, then that just means you're starting to look at some quarterbacks in the future. I know it's a hard position to fill, but when you've got one that has a talent, has a skill set, use it. Now, I don't know if Trubisky's skill set is enough to do what the Ravens did this year or if he'll ever be an NFL MVP, but he certainly has proven he can get you to a 10-win and 11-win season. But that's another conversation for another time. Eric, what game did you cover earlier this week that you want to touch on? I think it was Tennessee-Houston again.
Goodness, you know what? I do have to look it up. So why don't you touch on the game that you covered?
Well, the game that I can't even remember which one I covered. You'll have to look up for both of us. I thought it was the Lions and Packers.
I thought it was that too.
Okay, well, I'll just go with that one. Eric thought it was going to be a blowout. I thought it was going to be close, and it turned out to be close. Of course, I text Eric in the third quarter when the Lions were winning and was like, how do you like me now? And he's like, there's 4 quarters to a football game. Shut your mouth until it's over. And, of course, Green Bay came back and won. I think the Packers are the worst. This is the worst first-round bye football team I've seen since the 15-1 Packers. And remember, that team got bounced by the New York Giants in one game. They were the only 15-1 team in NFL history to be one and done. Anthony, how can you say a 15-1 team was garbage? Go back and look at their games that year. The people they were supposed to blow out, they blew out, and that was such a weak 15-1 team across the board, one-dimensional. And Aaron Rodgers, once again, in my opinion, proved why Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback, but I'll never put him in the great category. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have won one Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. We're going to call him great? So, it takes more than getting to a Super Bowl and winning one to be considered a great quarterback. There's a lot of great quarterbacks that never won a Super Bowl. Are you going to tell me that Trent Dilfer is better than Dan Marino? Really? Are you going to say that Trent Dilfer or Brad Johnson is every bit as good as Steve Young, who only won one? It takes a team to win a championship. So, you miss me with that nonsense. And I know MM Forever seems to think that, Jared Goff isn't in that same category. And I'm not going to get into that conversation right now. I'm not even going to get into that today. I will concede that Breeze, Rodgers, who's the other one? Russell Wilson are better than Jared Goff. But you'd be hard-pressed to tell me Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott, anybody in Washington, anybody in New York, Jameis Winston, Matt Ryan, Jimmy G, Kyler Murray are better than Jared Goff, which if I'm not correct, and I'm pretty sure I am, that means Jared Goff is a top 4 quarterback in the NFC. And maybe a top...
Trubisky's better than Goff.
Huh?
Trubisky's better than Goff.
Oh, no, I didn't even mention Trubisky because he's not even an NFL quarterback, but that's besides the point. Look, all I'm saying is, that Lion game was such a good depiction of what the Packers really are. They are a team that benefits from officiating, that benefits from Aaron Rodgers deciding to play a football game when he wants to play it. So he'll go 3 quarters MIA and then show up in the 4th. And I'm telling you, in the playoffs against Seattle, against Philly, against Minnesota, teams with a real defense, although he's beaten the Vikings twice, so I'll throw Minnesota out. But New Orleans, those are 3 teams. You don't play 1 quarter and expect to walk out of there with a dub. I don't care if you're home or you're away. And the Saints style of football travels in cold weather. We'll have to see if that could be the matchup if they beat Minnesota, because San Francisco's the 1 seed. So they'd end up getting Seattle or
No. San Francisco's the third. I'm sorry, Green Bay's a 2 seed.
yeah. So they would get New Orleans.
Yeah. So, they're most likely on. My prediction, I'm 99.95% sure that they're going to play New Orleans.
Yeah. So am I. So, but I just look at it this way: Green Bay should have lost that game. Lions should have swept them for the second year in a row. You can blame officials in the first game. You can blame a meltdown in the fourth quarter in the second game, or maybe you give credit to Aaron Rodgers. That's fine. Aaron Rodgers played a great fourth quarter.
What's funny is that Green Bay never led in any of the games against the Lions this year.
But they were close in every. They led in this one. They had a lead. I text you they had the lead.
No. Green Bay never had the lead against the Lions in any of the 2 football games that they played each other this year.
Isn't that crazy?
Crosby won both of them on game-winning field goals. They scored 23 points each game against the Lions. Now, the game really turned when Kenny Galladay left the game with a concussion. And as soon as he left, the Lions offense basically was the Lions offense. They didn't move the ball against Green Bay's D. But, as soon as he went out, they had nobody to throw to. And they couldn't move the ball. Of course, what does Aaron Rodgers do? Hey, here's a pass to Devontae Adams. Hey, here's another touchdown. Hey, touchdowns for everybody. And he brought the Packers back. They never played a really good, full, complete game. The only one that I watched this year that they did was against Carolina. And even they got a benefit of a roughing the passer call in the end zone when the defender actually rolled over the top of him, not on him, and still got the flag, and then they marched 97 yards downfield for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So when you get walked on the West Coast twice, and then have a Philly team that was actually with a full complement of players beat you in Lambeau, I'm going to wait for the stats, but let's just say this. I cover the San Francisco-Seattle game, and I'm glad San Francisco won that game, and I'll tell you why. But I'll tell you this after Anthony's done with his review of the Packers-Lions game.
Well, that's it. I mean, just my review is that Detroit played 3 quarters. They didn't play 4. Aaron Rodgers played 1 quarter. He didn't play 3. And because they were playing against a backup quarterback and a bad football team, they got away with it. And that's the only reason Green Bay won that game, and they're hosting a playoff game. And if you really believe that that's a recipe to go to the Super Bowl, because that's been Green Bay's MO all year long, get worked by weak teams on the road and barely beat bad teams at home or on the road, God bless you. I hope you're right, because the 100-year anniversary needs one of the originals in the Super Bowl, and I think Green Bay may be the only one. But they ain't getting out of the first round. They're getting beat at home for the second time in Aaron Rodgers' career while they're sitting at home with a bye week. It may be more than that if they've lost at home, but this one's definitely going to be an L at home. Anyway, what game did you cover, E?
I covered San Francisco-Seattle. I thought it was the only game really kind of worth covering in terms of what everything else had on the line. This one had a division title on the line, and it also had possibly a first-round bye on the line, or a team that was going to win. If San Francisco won, they were going to get the number 1 overall seed. If they lost, and this would have just probably been the worst thing for football. If they would have lost, Green Bay would have gotten the number 1 seed. New Orleans would have got the 2, Seattle would have got the 3, and San Francisco would have the 5 seed. So the playoffs could look really different if Seattle knew how to score at the end of games and not get penalties called on them, nonsense penalties called on them, like a delayed game penalty, in the last minute of the game that really screwed them over. But I digress. The 49ers went into Seattle. They looked like game busters in the first half. They were up 13-0 at halftime. And then the real fireworks started. Russell Wilson finally found his groove. And, sometimes you just gotta sit back. And I know being an NFC West Rams fan that you're like, to heck with the Seahawks and other choice words that you want to throw in there and whatnot. But sometimes watching him in a game, not against a team that you root for, maybe a team that you hate too. Seeing him what he can do with everything that he has, and they've really, I want to say they've gutted the team, but they've lost a lot of good star players on that team. Sherman, Frank Clark, Earl Thomas, the yada yada. I can go on and on. You remember the Legion of Boom defense?
Yep.
But to watch him come back and will the Seahawks back into the game, there's just something about him that he can take what he can do on the field and he can just create plays. Yeah, he had Marshawn Lynch back, but Marshawn really didn't look like Marshawn, and I wasn't expecting him to look like Marshawn. He scored a 1-yard touchdown. Ooh, goodness, William the Refrigerator Perry scored a 1-yard touchdown once, twice, maybe 3 times. Great, congratulations. I know everybody was going crazy, and they wanted more Marshawn. He was in on that last drive. Wilson willed the Seahawks back in the game. After halftime, they got the ball. They scored a touchdown. Then San Francisco answered with a touchdown of their own, but they went for 2 to go up by 14, which I didn't mind them going for 2 in that instance. I understood why they did it. But they didn't make it, so it was 19-7. And then Seattle, again, fourth quarter, they didn't punt at all. Or, I'm sorry, second half, they didn't punt at all. They kept getting the ball, scored him. They made it 19-14, and then the 49ers scored again and made it 26-14. I was like, okay, this could be close to the end for Seattle. And Seattle marches down, scores another touchdown, 26-21. And San Francisco, in their next drive, actually kept backing up and were getting tackles for loss and penalty. And they threw a screen pass on 3rd and 18 to Raheem Mostert, and he got 17 yards. So he was 1 yard away from basically icing the game for the 49ers. It was a great run, actually. He juked out a few defenders to get close, but he just couldn't get all the way. And so, it was one of those, oh man, should the 49ers go for where they're at right now in their own territory? I'm like, all I could just keep thinking back to was 2006 when Brady and Belichick thought they were smarter than everybody else, and they went for it on 4th and 1 or 2, for their own 20-yard line in Indianapolis in the playoffs, and basically what ultimately cost them a trip to the Super Bowl. And Indy ended up scoring a couple plays later, if everybody remembers that. And so they did, and they actually punted it away. The Seattle drove down the field, and again, Wilson hitting Metcalf, Wilson hitting Lockett, Wilson here. Travis Homer, yeah, you don't know about this guy. He's a 6th-round draft pick that we dressed for this game. And he's catching passes and running all over the place, like the guy's been in the league for 10 years. He looked really good in that game, and San Francisco was like, "Oh, yeah, we're not going to cover this guy. No problem. Yeah. See what happens after that." So they get down inside the 5. Actually, let me back up. They're about 1st and goal, or 1st and 10 from the 12. They ended up getting to 4th and 10. They hit Lockett basically at the 1-yard line. Plays keep going because they don't have any timeouts left. They brought in Lynch. Everybody was going crazy. Like, yeah, you should have ran Lynch on the 1-yard line in another game a few years ago that shall be named nameless. But they ended up getting a delay of game penalty, which set that back. They took Lynch out, put in Homer back. 3 straight incompletions. And it's 4th and goal. And they hit Hollister at the 1-inch yard line. And he tried rolling over and getting in, but you could see he's clearly down. They review it.
That's it, right there. Don't even go there. Seattle won the game. His knee never hits the ground, and the angle that they showed when they paused it, there is no way physically possible the football didn't break the plane. Now I know you don't actually see the ball.
His shoulder was out, his back was down.
Eric,
He had to roll.
his shoulder was down on the defender when he rolled. Go back and watch the replay.
He wasn't in the end zone is what the point is.
Well, the point, that's my whole point. So that's your synopsis of the game. Mine is Seattle got screwed by officiating. Because when you go back and look at that replay, I know you don't actually see ball break plane. But you know where the ball is in relation, to the ball carrier, and you know where the ball carrier's body is in relation to the plane. I don't know, this whole without a reasonable doubt is such a cop-out for officials. Because you're never gonna, unless you physically see ball, I understand under the letter of the law, the call's fine. San Francisco prevailed, great job. But there ain't a single person on that 49er team, and there ain't a single player on that Seahawk team, and there ain't a single guy in the NFL that doesn't believe he was in the end zone. Now, you didn't see the ball, so you can't rule it that way, I guess. But my question is, what the hell is the point of replay? If you're not going to be able to piece all these pieces together and go, okay, where's the ball? The ball, okay, he's carrying the ball on the upper part of his shoulder pad. Okay, that's where his shoulder is. That's across the plane. Now he hits the ground. Oh, but I didn't see ball, so I just don't know. What are you talking about? It is so, in my opinion, that was a cop-out blown call that nobody's going to complain about because you don't really know for sure. But if you have a brain cell functioning and two eyeballs, you know where the ball was on his shoulder when he was carrying it. You know where his body was when he broke the plane, and you know what body part hit the ground first. All in which would indicate to anybody with sane mind, Seattle scored the touchdown. But again, you don't physically see ball break plane, so there you go. It's a great game. The Niners won it. I'm not going to sit there and say the Niners stole it and that the officials blew the game, but that was a blown call. That was a blown call, but if you operate under the letter of the law, it was a perfectly executed call. So it really depends. If you're a Seahawks fan, you're agreeing with me right now. If you're a Niner fan, you're probably still agreeing with me right now going, no, under the letter of the law, it's not a touchdown. You just said it. So no, Anthony, you're wrong. Okay, fine, I'm wrong. But as somebody who doesn't like either team, I watched that and went, they're going to rule him down by contact. But he was in. The other thing that I thought was interesting about that call is we remember the Lions-Vikings game, but I think it was because it was on fourth down was the difference. The Lions-Viking game, the guy stretched for the end zone, didn't get in. They had to review it, and he had a 10-second runoff. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. The reason the 10-second runoff didn't apply is because that was a fourth down play?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have to say that's the only explanation.
But I still don't get if you're inside 2 minutes and the refs call for review. I don't get the 10-second runoff. Like it's not the Seahawks' fault. It's not the team's fault. You stop the clock. You stop the play to review it, and it's a non-fourth down play. Like, why is there a 10-second runoff?
It's like the old onside kick rule, right? You kick an onside kick if it went out of bounds because funny hops happen. You got a second chance at it. If it went out of bounds again, then the other team had the option to take the ball to 35 or where it went out of bounds. And then they changed the rule, said, oh, it's too much of an advantage for the kicking team. They get 2 shots at it. And then they sit there and say if it goes out of bounds, it goes out of bounds. It's one of those things, it's like you're penalizing the football team for something it's not intentionally doing. I agree with you on that.
Right.
I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Well, let's get to the Rams and Cardinals, shall we? I'm happy. I'm happy that the Rams ended the season 9-7. I'm happy that we're done with these uniforms and we're going to finally see the blue and yellows again. I believe that wholeheartedly. Demoff hinted at that in 2016 or 2017 when he said that the fans are The fans are very clear what uniform schemes they want. And then a lot of the Rams posts, they've been wearing blue and yellow, but for me, blue and yellow, but for me, the big reveal was the Super Bowl. You're in the Super Bowl and you're not wearing your new uniform scheme. You went with the old blue and gold. You don't do that if you don't plan on getting back to the Super Bowl in the future with the old uniforms being now the new uniform. So we'll have to see what the modification looks like, but I was pretty excited about that. At any rate, looking at this game, Jared Goff played another great game. Todd Gurley doesn't rush for 1,000 yards. There's no excuse for that, especially with the way he showed that he was running from the bye week on. You know, I get wanting to rest the guy, but once you hit the bye week and you come out of the bye week, I agree with you, Eric. You said this back in the Bengals game. It should have been the Todd Gurley show the second half of the season, and instead it was the Cooper Kupp show for like 2 weeks, and then that was it. Then they just ignored him completely, and they went back to this, I don't know what we're doing offensive philosophy. So we'll see what happens in the future with the Rams, but I thought Goff played a great game. I thought he had to do it alone because, once again, Todd Gurley was there, but only in theory only. He wasn't actually a big part of the game plan. And the Rams have won 9 games this year solely on the back of Jared Goff. But yet, which, by the way, is more games than Dak Prescott was able to win this year with the Dallas Cowboys, and he had a healthy Ezekiel Elliott running all day. So, again, you can miss me with the Dak is better than Jared Goff nonsense. I get when they played Dallas dominated, okay? I get it. But one game does not determine the body of work. So I'm scratching my head on that. So for me, my big takeaway in this game was the defense played okay. They didn't play inspired, which makes me believe that maybe Phillips is out the door. I hope not. I know a lot of Ram fans are going to disagree with me on that. What I hope that the Rams do is they spend an ample amount of time this offseason on the defense and really try to shore up these mistakes that we've seen in 2017, 2018, and 2019 keep showing up. I think if we fix those problems on the defensive side of the ball, all the offense needs to do is somebody needs to be in McVay's ear saying, run the damn ball. Maybe put you in his headphones, Eric, because that's been your motto for the 2020 season or 2019 season. Run the damn ball.
Pretty much.
And if somebody would just be like, hey, this is what I would do. I'd be like, Shanahan is out rushing us and we have a better running back than he does. Are you embarrassed that your buddy's beating you out? Motivate him to run the ball.
And I would think about maybe using Malcolm Brown a little bit more in the run game, too.
You know what? Malcolm Brown should be the fourth quarter bruiser that you bring in and just pound the defense to submission. You use Gurley for the first 3 to wear him out. You bring Malcolm Brown in on the fourth. You keep Todd Gurley for third downs because he's a dual threat, and use Malcolm Brown exclusively in the fourth quarter. I think you do 2 things. You keep Todd Gurley fresh, and you utilize Malcolm Brown more, just like you're saying. I don't know. It's not hard. This Ram team is set up to dominate for the next 10 years. And the head coach has just got to figure it out. But the Rams look good. Defensively, they stepped up when they needed to. Williams continues to look like a big-time pickup, the kid that we got from Baltimore. He made some nice plays. I want to see more of David Long Jr. I'm not sold on him, but I want to see what he can do. The fact that Jalen Ramsey didn't play in this game tells you everything you need to know about him. I say you take your losses. Yeah, you lost 2 first-round picks, but don't sign that piece of human fecal matter because he didn't make an impact on this defense. He didn't improve this defense. He didn't do anything to help this defense. Get him gone. See what you've got with the young talent and really put an emphasis on signing your guys and, take an approach of we're going to win like the Detroit Pistons did in 2004. We're going to win with team defense, not with superstars. We've got Aaron Donald. We've got Corey Littleton. we've got John Johnson III coming back, and we've got this kid Taylor Rapp who could be something special. That's our anchor on the defense. We're going to lean on veterans like Clay Matthews. We're going to lean on veterans like Dante Fowler, who could be a superstar in the making. I think we signed him too. And just trust that your defense has the skill set to be competitive in 16 games and get you to the playoffs. And work on being dynamic on offense. I think that's what the Rams need to do. If they sign Jalen Ramsey, then they're going to lose Fowler, they're going to lose Littleton, or they're going to lose Fowler and they're going to lose one of their other linebackers. Brockers is already gone.
Or they're going to cut Gurley.
Or they're going to cut Gurley. They're going to have to do something to free up that money because going into this offseason, they only have about $30 million in cap space. And if you sign Jalen Ramsey, that drops down to about $6 million. So, to me, it is better to cut your losses now than to really suffer losses with this piece of trash. Just my humble opinion. I wasn't a fan of the Jalen trade. I warned everybody. Everyone's like, oh, it smelled like desperation and BO is what it smelled like. It smelled like a teenage boy trying to get a date. Like it didn't smell right. And it was awkward and it was bad for everyone. Just saying. So we got to cut that loss. I'm going to end with golf. Let's go ahead and go into our postseason prediction. But Eric, before we do that, your thoughts on the Ram Cardinal game, because mine is Jared Goff carried us to victory. Tyler Higbee is a stud, just like I had hoped, thought, and said he was going to be. We've got two great tight ends. Higbee's more valuable because he can run and pass. He can run and catch. He can run block, run and catch. I should say he's a triple threat. But Everett's nothing to snarl at. I think this bodes well for the Rams in 2020.
Yeah, just figure out the offensive line. Use your draft on defense and the offensive line, or whatever draft picks. Trade back, pull the old Bill Belichick move, and just trade back, garner more picks. Plus, there's somebody at that pick that you can't mess up on, or can't pass up on, I should say. And then, you're right. Like I like seeing that they incorporated Cooper Kupp a little bit earlier in this game than they had in probably the previous 5 games. He still scored another touchdown. He had 99 yards, 7 catches. So that was 5 games in a row that he ended the season with a touchdown catch. Higbee didn't get over 100, but he was at 84. I mean, close. That would have been 5 straight games over 100 yards.
Yep.
Listen, I mean, you have a tight end right now. Yeah, he's not in the echelon of a Zach Ertz, a George Kittle, or a Travis Kelce. I'm telling you, though, you utilize Higbee the way you utilized him the last 4 or 5 weeks, and you guys got a very, very inexpensive tight end moving forward for a couple of years, which could be a very, very big part of your offense. And one that I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses. So, I mean, that might be where you could let a wide receiver go for a draft pick, where you could let other places go to draft, but you have your tight end, and if Everett comes back, if he's still under contract, which I'm assuming he is, then you have 2 tight end set that you don't have to worry about. And just keep Everett healthy, and Higbee, as you texted me to him.
That's right. That's his nickname.
That could still be a formidable offense. I think there's one wide receiver who might not fit in anymore, but if you have two wide receivers, then put Josh Reynolds out there with 2 tight ends. I mean, suffice to say, if you can get something for Brandon Cooks, I say do it, because Cooks really didn't show up much this year.
No.
So, I mean, the Rams have some questions to answer moving forward. I hate to say it, but it sounds like Wade Phillips might be out as defensive coordinator. I did text an article to Anthony, and oh man, when I got back, I can't really share on the show, but if anybody has got their not listening to what's going on the East Coast, Bruce Allen, the president for the Washington Redskins, was fired. and because he has a little bit of ties with the Rams, they were mentioning him to the Rams, and I'm like, oh God, I hope not.
That guy is the biggest scumbag on the planet. I would trust Nancy Pelosi with my pregnant daughter, if I had one, in making her make an informed decision on abortion before I would trust Josh Allen with anything on this planet, let alone a football team. Okay? That's how much of a piece of garbage he is. And I tell you, as a Redskin fan on the side, because that's my second favorite team, that man is a disaster of biblical proportions for any organization. So if you get Allen, get ready to lose. And that includes in LA. Allen is the type of guy that would go, let's trade Jared Goff, Tyler Higbee, and Aaron Donald for a first-round pick. Just one. That's all we need. We'll go ahead and we'll draft a punter. That's Josh Allen. Or not Josh Allen, but Allen for the Redskins. He is absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid. And I'm sorry to be gross. Ladies, forgive me. Gentlemen, plug your children's ears. The pubic hair that falls off in the toilet when I take a dump has more football knowledge than Allen does in his entire brain cell. Okay? Just saying. And trust me, I've kept this clean. The text message that I responded to with Eric, not for children's eyes, not befitting of a lady, and certainly not befitting of a gentleman, which I never claimed to be. So, I digress. Anyway, I don't even want to talk about that because that has about as much of a chance happening as the Cleveland Browns hiring me as head coach, even though they should.
All right, well, then let's change over to what Tim Moore likes to say. Playoffs?
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 Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, there was one other thing I was going to touch on this. Oh, really quick. Here's the reason why I'm excited. For the third time in a row, for the first time since John Robinson, a Ram rookie coach, has had 3 straight winning seasons. For the first time since the greatest show on turf, the Rams have had 3 straight winning seasons. Now, this one didn't come with a playoff berth, but silver lining. All right, playoffs. Let's start. The first game of the day is the most interesting game of the day. The Buffalo Bills against the Houston Texans. So, let me start with this one. This is an old Buffalo Bills. Well, no, it's not. If it was the Tennessee Titans, it would be the old Houston Oilers against the Buffalo Bills. But Houston and Buffalo have quite a history. They have about 32 reasons you should be watching this game if you know anything about the history of football. But I will say this. I think Buffalo has a strong defense. I think Josh Allen is a dual threat, but I think the Texans have a dual threat that they practice against every day. Now, here's the question. Do the starters practice against that every day? No, they don't. So what does that mean? That means they have a different animal that they have to encounter. I think Houston didn't want to be here. I think when Andrew Luck announced his retirement and Houston looked at their football team going into the offseason, I think they felt pretty good about being a first-round bye this year. I think the fact that they're hosting a wild card game for like the 90th time in a row bothers them. And I don't know that they're going to be as all-in early as the Buffalo Bills are going to be. Because remember, the Bills were here 2 years ago, and they got bounced. It wasn't against Houston, but they got bounced. So, or was it against Houston? Who did they play 2 years ago, E?
I have to look it up, but I know I wanted to say Baltimore, but they were at a 3-team tie for Baltimore. So.
Yeah.
Let me look that up.
Look that up while I go into my analysis. Essentially, here's my thought process. I think that Buffalo can control the clock. They've got accuracy issues, but in a dome, that's not a problem. He doesn't have to worry about weather. He's just got to get the ball to a couple of his targets. The Houston has a huge advantage in Hopkins, but the Bills' advantage, I think, is on defense. So you're going to have the best against the best. It was Jacksonville, that's right. And Jacksonville beat them like 7-3 or 10-7, something weird. 10-3. It was a low scoring. Yeah, it was a low scoring game, 10-3. I think Buffalo wins this game. I think Josh Allen goes in there, and I think he finds a way to get the Bills a W. I think that the defense is going to rise up and play well against Hopkins. I think that the Texans are going to continue to struggle to run the ball. I think Josh Allen is going to find some running lanes. I think Cole Beasley is going to be a big part of the intermediate passing game with his playoff experience. And I think Buffalo pulls out a 20-17 victory over Houston.
Jesus, can we be any closer with our pick? I was most likely going to use 20-17. Now I got to find something else. Thank you.
You can go with the same score.
I do agree. Actually, Saturday today is AFC playoffs, which is weird because usually they do an AFC and an NFC game each day. But today is AFC, tomorrow is NFC. So with the Bills and Texans, man, I have been telling everybody that I know, like, the Buffalo is in a great position, and the two teams Buffalo could play next don't want to see Buffalo.
Yeah.
That includes, one team includes the Houston Texans. They have a defense that is not talked about. Buffalo doesn't get talked about in the media. Buffalo's not one of the media six that Anthony likes to claim.
Yeah.
Buffalo's quiet. Buffalo plays in one of the bottom 5 markets in as far as football goes in the NFL. They need a new stadium. They don't care. They're like, this is old school football here. Here's what we're going to win on. We're going to win on defense, and we're going to win on running the football, whether that's with our running back or quarterback. Josh Allen has impressed me to no other this year. He didn't start out the greatest, but man, he did improve tremendously. And yeah, they were one game. They were 2 Patriot games away from actually just flip-flopping and winning the division. But against Houston, I think this is a tremendous matchup, one that really favors the Bills. And if they can limit their turnovers and use their ground game and just throw a play-action pass once or twice a half, streak John Brown down the field, they're going to hit a big play. I do like that they're not one of those like, hey, let's throw bombs all day and see who comes down with them and whatnot. And no, we're going to move the chains. Here you go, Singletary. Oh, you got 5-6 yards? That's cool. Hey, Dawon Knox, run 4 yards. Oh, you caught it? First down? Hey, let's do that again. Beasley? Oh, 7-yard catch? No problem. Hey, Frank Gore, get over here. 3 yards, that's all we need. Got it? Good. Josh Allen. Oh, 1st and 10. You want to take 11 yards? Awesome. They wear out a defense. And yes, this is a defense that is going to get J.J. Watt back. You know what? Buffalo, don't care. Don't care. Don't care. J.J. Watt has been missing for about the past 7 weeks with that torn pec, maybe longer. He's going to be rusty. I understand that, and they're not going to use him the whole game. Run your offense. Because that Texans defense, you can run on it, you can pass on it. And I expect the Bills to control the clock. And then on the opposite side of the ball, when Houston has the ball, I expect Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde to get nowhere. I expect Deshaun Watson to be running for his life. If I'm the Texans, I line up DeAndre Hopkins opposite of Trey White on every single pass play there is. Maybe even put him in motion so you get him off the side that Trey White is on. Trey White has not allowed a touchdown while guarding a receiver this year. Gilmore can't say that. And he's the other one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Trey White, they're scared to throw to you, to your side. So the offense will open up for Houston, and not the way that we've seen it open up when Will Fuller is on the field. Dude is a tremendous talent. He just can't stay healthy. He's a game-time decision. They call him a long shot to play. If he doesn't play, it's Hopkins and Kenny Stills on each side. And you got Darren Fells as your tight end. I'm expecting Watson to struggle. And that's why I would have picked 20-17 Bills, but I guess I'll go 23-20 Bills.
Okay, you can go 2017 Bills. All right, Patriots, Titans, I'm going to go with two predictions here. One, what the Titans should do. Two, what the Titans will probably do. So here's what the Titans should do. Tennessee should run the ball. You know the Patriots filmed you. Don't care. Run the ball. But change up your audibles or your communication schemes that you've been running all year that you know the Patriots have film on. And just
Vrabel's not going to allow them to keep the same stuff going. You know that.
Well,
as a former player for Belichick, you know he's going to be like, we're changing everything.
he
We're
should.
changing our team plane. We're changing our drawers. We're changing our socks. We're changing our luggage.
He should.
We're changing our flight pattern.
He should. But here's what they need to do. Run their offense, attack Tom Brady, not just from up the middle anymore, attack him from the sides because those tackles are weak. If Edelman plays, double team him. Don't worry about anybody else on that offense. And make Tom Brady beat you. Play a simple 4-3 defense, blitz the hell out of Tom Brady while covering the middle of the field with the linebackers that aren't blitzing. Give him the underneath stuff to the wide to the running backs. Come up and tackle. It's as simple as that. If they do that, I think the Titans walk out of New England with a 24-20 win, and it's the end of a dynasty. That's what should happen. Run the ball, attack Tom Brady with the blitz, jam the receivers, because again, he can't throw deep, force him to go underneath to the backs, and tackle him. It's as simple as that. That's all you need to do. But here's what the Titans are going to do. They're going to play 10 yards off the receivers. They're not going to blitz Tom Brady. They're going to keep their same scheme going that they've been having going all year. And New England's going to pick them apart, get to a big lead, forcing Ryan Tannehill to beat the Patriots. Ryan Tannehill can't beat himself, let alone beat the New England Patriots. And New England walks out of there with a 41-10 win. That's my prediction. What they should do and what will happen are two completely different things, as we've seen every postseason for the last 20 years with the New England Patriots. Go.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, because when teams decide to play New England, they decide to play a completely different brand of style of football. They decide to play whatever the Patriots want them to play. But this Tennessee team is a lot different from other teams, in my opinion. The only problem is, and I've talked to a lot of people this past week at work, online, and, they're like, oh, well, Tennessee beat New England last year. I'm like, yeah, but that was with Mariota. And, the Patriots got worked in week 2. It happened. I think they won like 34-10 or something like that. But yeah, that was they still had Derrick Henry. And yeah, Mike Vrabel was still the coach. But it was Mariota that was playing. And this time they don't have Mariota. They have Tannehill, who's been a very nice, surprising addition to the Tennessee Titan organization. So much so where, in my opinion, they're going to let Mariota walk and sign Tannehill.
Yep.
But we'll get to that for offseason stuff. However, it is still Brady Belichick. I'm going to assume the Patriots are going to win. I'm not picking the Patriots. I'm actually picking the Titans. Even though how I'm about to break it down favors New England, because Gilmore is going to be on A.J. Brown. Okay? So that takes away him, unless he's able to get deep on him. And we see what Fitzpatrick and Parker did to Gilmore last week when the Patriots claimed that the game against the Dolphins was they're going to treat it like a playoff game. Yeah, really good job. He'd have been out of the playoffs if that were the case. So, Derrick Henry, we all know where he went to school. Well, most of us do. He went to Alabama. On the opposite side of the ball, staring him down in the backfield, is one of his former teammates, Dante Hightower. And you know darn well that he's going to want to get the best of Derrick Henry. But what happens with Derrick Henry in the second half of the season for the last 2 seasons? Nobody wants to tackle the freight train running down the field.
Mm-mm. No.
2 years in a row. That's Jacksonville. They want no part of him. Oh, if Derrick Henry's got the ball, everybody go the opposite way. I don't expect the Patriots to do that because what does Belichick do? He game plans based on your strengths. And if one of your strengths is A.J. Brown, all he's got to do is look at Gilmore and be like, hey, you good? He's like, yeah. Okay, you don't have to worry about Brown. Are you really worried about Corey Davis? No. The only other guy who I think can really hurt you in the pass game is Jonnu Smith. Delaney Walker went on IR back in early December. Jonnu Smith has stepped up and has played a vital role in that Titans passing offense to where he can block and he can go out, he can go downfield, and he's caught quite a few long touchdown passes as well. And he can also run really well with football. So if he's got to do a catch and run, like I've got no problem with him doing that whatsoever, and the Titans shouldn't either. That comes down to Derrick Henry. That Patriots defense carried New England for quite a bit of the season. And then, you know what happens when, the offense doesn't carry their half of the load? That defense is like, crap, we got to do more. And that defense starts to find holes. And we've seen that with New England. Which is why I think that you're going to see Tannehill, even though the Patriots know him really well from facing him twice a year down in Miami, not the same Tannehill. He's got a lot more weapons with Tennessee than he ever had with Miami, in my opinion. He's going to be able to find some holes in that defense. He's going to be able to use his legs, and Derrick Henry is going to break one. I think what they also need to do to throw a wrench into the plans is utilize Dion Lewis a lot more in the passing game today. If they do that and they are successful, hey, it could be like five screen passes to Dion Lewis, and they both go for 10 to 15 yards each.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to put a damper, and that's going to wear down the Patriots defense. They're going to be on their back heels the whole game.
So what's your score?
I like Tennessee going into this game and winning 24-21.
24-21. Okay, so you're not too far off from what should happen, but I just don't know.
No, I just think it's prime picking for the home teams. I think it's prime picking for the road teams in the AFC to win this weekend.
Well, you could be right. I'll go over to the NFC. I'll start with this one. 1987 was the first time the New Orleans Saints had ever made the playoffs. They were 12-3. It was the strike-shortened season. They had a great year. They had ended the season on like a 7 or 8 game winning streak. Everyone was high on New Orleans. Minnesota stumbled into the postseason at 8-7. They didn't have much. They had a great wide receiver, Anthony Carter. Their quarterback situation was a mess. Their running back situation was average at best. But what the Vikings did have was a great defense. And everyone was excited for this matchup. And Minnesota went into New Orleans and they beat the living pants off of the Saints, 44-10, pulling off one of the biggest upsets in NFL history, only to double down the next weekend and beat the 49ers in San Francisco, who was 14-2 that year, in a bigger upset, thus putting together the greatest postseason run maybe ever in NFL history, going on the road and beating a 12-3 team and a 13-2 team, which essentially is 13-3 and 14-2 today, and surprised everybody before losing to Washington in the NFC Championship game. That was the year Washington went into Chicago and ceremoniously ended Walter Payton's career in his final game with an upset victory. Eric, we won't talk too much about that game, though. Okay. So what am I saying? Upset, Anthony? Oh, man, look out. Here come the Vikings in New Orleans. Except they have Kirk Cousins. Their defense is okay. They have a great running game, but their defense has been suspect at times this year. And that's not Bobby Hebert throwing to Eric Martin. That's Drew Brees throwing to Michael Thomas. Dalton Hilliard, Ruben Mays were great running backs. They have Dalton Hilliard and Ruben Mays in one running back in Kamara. See, Kamara can catch the ball in the backfield like Dalton Hilliard, but he can run like Ruben Mays, and he's got the speed of both of them combined. The Saints also had a really good defense that year. So do the Saints this year. Not really good, not as good. I wouldn't say they were as good as the 87 team, but they're good. And they're good enough to beat Kirk Cousins. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is, you go ahead and you get yourself a small cup of beer. Don't open up, maybe one bottle. That's all you're going to need. Put your feet up, pop a couple of pieces of popcorn, and just know that when the first 15 minutes of this game is over, you no longer need to watch. Saints 51, Vikings 10. They're going to throw the ball all over this defense. They're going to run the ball all over this defense. They're going to stop Kirk Cousins, forcing them to be one-dimensional. Look, if Green Bay can shut them down in the second half in Minnesota, I don't want to know what the Saints in a revenge game is going to do against Minnesota at home for the first time since in a playoff game since last year's NFC Championship game debacle. Minnesota is out early and often. Saints 51, Vikings 10.
That was 2 years ago.
Last year they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Rams.
Well, right. I'm saying the Minneapolis Miracle that...
yeah, the revenge game is 2 years in the making. Yes, I agree.
Right. Yeah, again, it's Kirk Cousins. His career record against teams over 500, he's got one win. He beat the lowly Dallas Cowboys this season. And I actually put an asterisk next to that because the Cowboys stink.
And they didn't end up over 500, did they?
And they didn't end up over 500, no. So at the time, though, they were over 500. But then when you look like complete dog poop against the Green Bay Packers, nearly all game and only benefited from 3 turnovers, 2 of which you scored off of. And then you lose to the Bears and you don't play any starters. You need those reps. Houston Texans, if you're still listening, you need those reps. And yeah, you could say, but what about Buffalo? Every quarterback could use the reps. So yes, and Buffalo did play Josh Allen for a couple of series. I know he was like 3 for 5 for like 5 yards. But he still played. Cousins didn't play in week 17. Sean Watson didn't play in week 17. Yeah, Dalvin Cook says, oh, yeah, I'm healthy, I'm ready to go, I'm good. Yeah, man, you're good to be watching the Saints score a lot of points from your sideline.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to be good to do, because that's what's going to happen. If Green Bay's defense with Zadarius Smith can go through the Vikings' offensive line like a hot knife through butter, because that's pretty much what happened. Man, Cam Jordan, he's licking his chops. He's like, hey, if this guy Zadarius Smith can do that, man, wait till you see what I can do. And I expect a couple of Kirk Cousins turnovers, so one on the ground and one in the air. And I expect the Saints to come out, and I expect Drew Brees to throw at least 12 passes Michael Thomas's way and him to have 12 catches. And Kamara to run the ball. Oh, what's Kamara going to do? He's going to run the ball. Take note, Sean Payton, because you still need to run the ball in the playoffs. I digress. 38-14 Saints.
Yep. Okay. Seattle against Philadelphia. Again, this one's pretty simple. So for me, here we go. Here's my breakdown. Carson Wentz is not better than Jared Goff, and he's going to prove it today or this Sunday. He's at home against a Seahawks team that Jared Goff has beaten once this year, should have been twice if Greg Zuerlein could have made a kick from 47 yards out in Seattle, which also would have given him 5 straight wins against Seattle. I'm just saying. But I digress. As we look at this game, Seattle's defense is good enough to stop a very anemic and pathetic NFC Eastern Division champion Philadelphia Eagle football team. But the Eagles' defense is good. It's not great, but it's good. And I think their defense will keep them in the game. I think it's going to be 7-3 Seahawks at halftime. 7-3 Eagles at halftime. But I think that's it. I think that Seattle will add a field goal to take will get a touchdown in the third quarter to make it 10-7, and they'll get another touchdown in the fourth quarter to get their separation, and they'll walk out of Philadelphia with a 17-7 victory. I just don't see anybody on Philadelphia able to gash the Eagles defense. I don't see a running game present at all, and beast mode is back in Seattle for at least a postseason. And Philly hasn't been able to stop the run pretty much all year long. Now when I say they haven't been able to stop the run, they haven't been able to stop the run to their standard. They'll stop Marshawn Lynch. There's going to be some rust, but they're going to have to account for him, which is going to open up DK Metcalf and some of those other wide receivers. Russell Wilson is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, period. There's no disputing that. And I just think that it's going to be close at halftime due to the weather, due to the type of football game that this is going to be. It's going to be a short first half. But the Seahawks are going to make their headway in the second half, and they're going to walk out of Philly with a 17-7 victory, and they're going to go ahead and head to Green Bay head to San Francisco next weekend, which is probably the one matchup the 49ers don't want.
Well, there's going to be no weather in this game. It's going to be 43 and sunny.
It's cold. It's going to be cold. Trust me, hitting in cold weather ain't fun.
It's cold. Once you've been out there 5 minutes, you played sport. Well, you played sports in Arizona, so that doesn't count. Listen, I played sports in Chicago where it still snowed in May, and I was playing baseball, and I played soccer as well in fall. So, listen, 43. Once you're out there and you start running around 5 minutes, you don't even feel it. And these guys, will not feel any type of cold. With that being said, Philadelphia. The last 4 games on your schedule versus the Giants, at Washington, versus Dallas, at the Giants. Who made your schedule? Oh, that's right. Never mind. I don't even have to ask. So you could thank the NFL with a box of chocolates and some roses after this game for getting you into the playoffs. Because your schedule allowed you to get in. You didn't play anybody that actually was good. Don't give me Dallas because they're not good. There's still question marks in this game. Zach Ertz, we don't know if he's going to play because of fractured rib and lacerated kidney. But hey, other than that, he's good to go. I don't like that you say they don't have a run game. Miles Sanders has been doing excellent work with them while Jordan Howard was out. And when Miles Sanders went out last week with a sprained ankle, Boston Scott scored 3 touchdowns.
Against the Giants.
And I know it was against the Giants, but Seattle's run defense is nothing to write home about.
Better than the Giants.
They lost Michael Kendricks to an ACL injury. Clowney's back, but he hasn't as been impactful as they would have hoped. And I will let you guys know that this start for Carson Wentz is his first career playoff start. Yes, you heard that right. First career playoff start. So we'll see what he has. Do you know a healthy wide receiver on the Philadelphia Eagles right now, Anthony?
Michael Quick, but I think he retired sometime in the early 90s.
Currently, they're starting wide receiver.
No, I got nothing.
Okay. Greg Ward Jr., you might have heard the name. He used to be a quarterback at the University of Houston. And J.J. Arceo-Whiteside. And when you look at the camera in your computer and see who the heck are these guys, that's probably what you just did. I do the same thing, too. If Zach Ertz ways I give them a chance. If it's the Dallas Goedert show, then the Seahawks really have to just cover one guy, because Greg Ward Jr. and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside are not going to light the world on fire.
To put it mildly.
Now, Seattle already went into Philadelphia, and they beat them. They beat them 17-9 back in Week 12. Now, it was a sloppy game. Wentz, had 250 yards. Sanders had 63 on the ground, and Ertz was their leading receiver with 91 yards. And again, Ertz is going to be a game-time decision. He really wants to play, and I think everybody remembers a time when Jason Witten wanted to play with a lacerated spleen as well. And obviously Wirtz has the lacerated kidney going on. So, I mean, one hit and he could be at the hospital within 20 minutes probably.
Yeah, it's not smart to play him.
Now, the Seahawks under Pete Carroll are 5-0 against Philadelphia. Now, the whole week, I'm like, all right, Philadelphia's going to win this game. It's Philly. They're green nose. I just talked myself out of picking Philadelphia, by the way. just because of the amount of injuries. And, yeah, Wentz willed them to victory in their 4 wins, but they were playing very, very mediocre talent. And before that 4-game winning streak to end the year to get them to 9-7, they had lost 3 in a row, and they were all within 1 score.
Yeah.
They lost to New England by a touchdown. They lost to Seattle by 8, and then they lost to Miami 37-31 down in Miami. So, I mean, they were really reeling. And then they're like, oh, hey, we got four division games. We can do this. And that's why now Doug Peterson will probably be the longest tenured head coach as soon as the Cowboys decide to pull a string on Jason Garrett, which I don't know why they're stringing him along. So there's going to be a lot of changes in the NFC East.
Well, let's get into that. What's your score?
Philly is going to go down in flames because they do not have any complement of healthy players on their side of the ball. Seattle goes in, they win 24-9.
There you go. I agree. I think it's going to be low.
Which is going to set up Seattle at San Francisco.
Which is not what the Niners wanted, but I digress. Okay. I want to touch a little bit on the coaching thing. There's not a lot to cover here. The Browns have fired Kinchins. The Redskins have fired the interim coach, or fired Gruden. They're looking at Rivera. I'm excited about that. Callahan, sorry, yeah, the interim.
Callahan go.
Yeah, after firing Gruden. They're looking at Ron Rivera, which I think would be awesome. Ron Rivera is a defensive mind. They've already signed him? Woohoo! The Redskins got themselves. If you're a Redskin fan, do a jig. I'll tell you why you should be happy about this. He's a good.
It was announced on New Year's.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. I've been out of the loop. Sorry. Look, he's great on the defensive side of the ball. He can get the most talent out of what he needs. I'm not sure that Haskins is going to be his guy, so look for them to make a move towards quarterback. It's probably going to take him about a year or two to get back on track, but he's going to focus on the defense side of the ball, and he's going to focus on getting himself a solid quarterback. Don't be surprised if Cam Newton ends up in Washington. I hate to say that.
I'll tell you this much, though, Anthony, really quick. The Redskins hold the number 2 pick in the draft, all right? So if Cincinnati selected Joe Burrow at number 1, I mean, how can you pass up on Chase Young from Ohio State?
Or Tua. I know he's got the hip injury, but what do you do about Tua?
Tua is announcing his decision on Monday whether he's going to go to the NFL or go back to school.
I think he should go back to school.
I think he should go to the NFL.
Well, he probably will with the hip injury, but that's going to hurt his draft stock. He's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. If he stays another year, then he can prove that he's fully recovered, but what if he's not fully recovered? He's lost all that money. And I think the Redskins might take a chance on him at number 2. But maybe not. Maybe they get this other quarterback like you're talking about. But you're right. You can't pass up on I said Chase Daniels. What's his name?
Chase Young.
Thank you.
Defensive end, Ohio State.
The defensive end. Well, I think What about the quarterback from Oregon?
Not well. I mean, we've seen Josh Rosen go in the top 10. I don't know. Herbert's stock is everywhere up there right now.
Okay, well, then maybe they do get.
I think they need to see what they have in Haskins first.
Well, I think they did this year, but Haskins, Ohio State quarterbacks, how many of them have been good in the NFL? Just saying.
I mean, they could always. If they don't think Haskins is the guy, I mean, you got Trevor Lawrence coming out the following year.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Get yourself set on defense and then go get him. Maybe even Tua next year if he's healthy, if he stays. I think it's a great move for Washington. It's going to be a couple years before we see them in the playoffs, but I think they're moving finally in a direction that is firing Allen and getting rid of Gruden and bringing in this guy. I think is a good move. I think it's a really good move, and we'll see what ends up happening from here. Other coaching changes. Marrone is staying and was let go, right?
No, Marrone is staying.
That's right. Marrone is staying in Jacksonville. Who was let go besides?
Shermer was let go in New York.
Yep. And then Kinchin, we already said. Okay. So
yeah, Kitchens was let go.
There could literally be 3 new coaches in the NFC East by the end of if the Cowboys do move on from Garrett.
And I was just reading another little blurb on Roto World that it hasn't been official that Garrett won't be back. I think they're waiting. They're waiting till Monday.
I don't think it's bad to do that, especially if they decide to bring him back. I think he's weighing ticket sales right now because people are pretty pissed at Garrett. But I'm with Dion on this. I can't blame Jason Garrett. You know, does Jason Garrett go out there and not cover receivers in big games? Does Jason Garrett go out there and miss big tackles in big moments in playoff games? Does Jason Garrett go out there and throw interceptions or throw, the ball away? What's that?
I said he used to.
No, he was actually not that bad of a backup. I just think it's you can't put an 8 when a team is 8-8. Here's what you can put on the coach: discipline, inconsistent play is definitely something the coach can correct. But inconsistent play over a long period of time, which is what Garrett's dealing with, that's your personnel. I, for a long time, have said Dallas is not the most talented team on paper. When I look at Dallas, I go, Dak Prescott's an average quarterback. Their running back is great. Their line is old and depleted. Their D-line isn't that great. Their linebackers aren't that special. Their corners aren't that scary. And their safeties aren't that impressive. Other than that, Dallas has a solid foundation. I don't know where people are getting off that Dallas is this great, formidable team on paper. When I look at Dallas on paper, there isn't a single corner I'm not willing to attack on a daily basis with down the field passing. There's not a single linebacker I don't look at and go, we can run at him. Or I say that we can't run at. So I don't know why everyone's hung up on Dallas's lack of talent, trying to, what it's like? It's like telling somebody, no, that's not Brussels sprouts, it's broccoli, just shaped weird, and expecting people to believe you. They're trying to get you to believe that Dallas is broccoli, and it's really Brussels sprouts. That's what Dallas is. They are what you think and see that they are on the field. And it's great when you throw for 400 yards against Washington. What did you do against Philly? Just saying. So we'll see what happens in Dallas. I think they should keep Garrett because I don't think Garrett's the problem. But I think they need to blow up that whole thing. I think they need to make a decision on Dak. But if they sign him, then they've got to understand they got to build a lot more around it. Because this team, especially on the defense side of the ball, they have good linebackers, not great. They have a great pass rusher, but only one. They've got a lot of work on that side of the ball to do before Dallas will ever be considered anything but average, in my opinion.
You are right about one thing. It is not on Jason Garrett.
No.
It actually stems from the owner, president, GM, locker room attendant, janitor, concession stand manager and worker, bathroom attendant.
How about the players?
Entourage.
The players play the game, Eric.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned this on the show before, but How are your two best players not in on a fourth down play near the red zone against Philadelphia at the end of the game?
Well, and that's definitely a mark against Garrett, because he should be pulling the trigger on that. I don't care if the OC ran up that play. You say, no, we're not doing that. There's no reason to do that. You call a timeout, and if you don't have one, then you take it on the chin as your fault, and you have a very serious conversation about finding another offense coordinator. It's as simple as that. I'm going to end the show with this, because this show has been pretty long. I want to touch on Jared Goff for a minute. Eric, would you be surprised if I told you that Jared Goff has had 58 possible career starts, and he's had 58 games that he could play in, because they didn't play him in week 16 a couple years ago. He's played in 58 games. Durability, Jared Goff is a check on that. He has not missed a single start. When they said, Jared, you're playing today, he's played. He hasn't missed a game due to an injury, despite the pounding he took this year. Does that surprise you?
He practices like he's going to play. And when you have a quarterback that you could rely on, that's one less thing that you need to worry about during the course of the week leading up to a game.
How about this?
So no, it's not surprising. It's not surprising that he's durable and that he's made those starts. What's surprising is he still has his life intact after the offensive line shambles this past year.
That's the truth. That's the truth. How about this? He's 13-6 against the NFC West all time. He's 6-0 against the Cardinals. He's 4-3 against Seattle, and he's 3-3 against San Francisco. Which the only mark there I can look at is he should be 5-2 against Seattle, and that San Francisco game he should be 4-2. It's not right that he's 3-3, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. I'll get to that in a minute. How about comebacks?
Not surprising because of how the Rams have built up the last couple of years. I mean, you take a look at the other teams. The Cardinals have been atrocious. They're starting to get a little bit better. They just need consistent quarterback play out of Murray. San Francisco took a big leap this year, so yeah, he had an advantage on them before the year. And then Seattle, they've always played Seattle tough.
Well, and that's just it, though. This is what Jared Goff has done since coming to the Rams. We haven't seen NFC West records like that since Jim Everett, okay? Before the 90s. Let's take a look at his comebacks. The one knock that I've had on Jared Goff, in my mind, and I was thinking about this last night, is, well, Jared Goff doesn't come from behind. It's not true. I mean, I'm looking at this right now. These are comebacks that he's had so far in his career. 2017 against San Francisco. Against Tennessee. Now, guys, just so you know, the NFL definition of a comeback is tied or behind going into the fourth quarter. It doesn't matter if you take the lead with 14:59 to go in the fourth quarter, or if you take the lead with 1 second to go in the fourth quarter, it's still considered a come from behind victory. So the Tennessee game, the Rams were tied going into the fourth quarter after having the lead, and then they scored a touchdown with about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter to cap a drive. I'm sorry, about 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter to cap a drive that started in the third quarter, but it still counted. So they had 2 comeback wins there. In 2018, the year they went to the Super Bowl, listen to these comebacks. Minnesota, Seattle, Green Bay, Kansas City, New Orleans in the championship game. All fourth quarter comeback victories. And then 2018, this year, he had the comeback against Cleveland. But let's look at the come from behind opportunities lost. Okay, in 2017, he tied Washington in the fourth quarter. All the Rams needed was a stop on defense, and inexplicably, Kirk Cousins marches him up the field and gets the victory, right? Beats the Rams 27-20. Against Philadelphia that same year, the Rams took this great effort to come back and tie the game in the fourth quarter, only to have Carson Wentz score again, go out with an injury, and blow the Rams out. In 2018, okay, once again, against Philadelphia, the Rams have a lead. Okay? Philly comes back and beats them. The Rams come back, they tie it, and then Philly beats them. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm jumping gun here. That's 2017, 2018. I have to go back and look. Oh yeah, no, the Super Bowl year. Sorry, Philly. So they did. They tied them. Remember, they had that big deficit. They came back and tied it, and then Philly scored in the fourth quarter to win it by 7. And then the Super Bowl against New England. Inexplicably, he ties them at 3-3. It's 3-3 going into the fourth quarter, or 6-3 no, it was 3-3 going into the fourth quarter, and then New England scores 10 points in the fourth quarter to win it because the defense let them down. Now, granted, you can put some of that on Goff too, okay? But you can blame the defense against Washington and Philly in 2017. You can blame the offense against, or you can blame the defense against Philly and New England, although you could blame the offense too. And then Tampa Bay, okay, this year, 55-40. I mean, the Rams at some point had come back and actually made that game a one-score game, but the defense could never stop Tampa Bay. Seattle, special teams let them down with a missed field goal. San Francisco, the defense let them down on a big play. And, yeah, that's it. That's it. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lost games. Lost comebacks. Jared Goff could have 15 career comeback wins going into next year if the defensive special teams were just more solid on their side of the ball and could have helped them out. And you look at that and you go, wow, Jared Goff's actually pretty competitive. Here's the thing I love about Jared Goff and why I'm bringing up the comebacks. The reason he only has 15 opportunities for comebacks is because when the Rams get a lead with Jared Goff, they don't lose it, especially in the fourth quarter. Go back and look at his fourth quarter numbers. When the Rams have a lead in the fourth quarter, they don't blow it usually. Not usually. So I think that's a testament to how good of a quarterback he really is. And I think moving forward, if people can just get off his back and start putting the blame on the proper places, and maybe that's what McVay's doing when he says we're going to get rid of Wade Phillips, because the defense has been a liability now for 3 years. Despite me being told they're the best defense in football, they haven't played like they're the best defense in football. Maybe it is time to move on from that ship. I think I just talked myself into letting go of Wade Phillips. But anyway, what is your feeling on the Goff numbers?
I mean, you're in these situations with the hand that you deal. So, like, Goff is doing what he's doing because he's got that pedigree in him to lead his team down the field. And he's also got a defense that he more than half the times can rely on to get what he needs to get the ball back. So it's not surprising. Usually, there's always a bunch of quarterbacks who are able to come back because, there's that 2-minute offense. They can run to a T. They know it like the back of their hand. So, and I think Goff has that. I don't want to compare, and that's not what I'm doing here. I've seen Trubisky do it at least twice this year, once against the Lions and once against the Vikings. Now, it doesn't matter who you do it against. Competition is still competition.
Yeah.
I mean, if the defense that you're going up against decides to lay down for you, you take it because wins in the NFL are hard to come by.
Yeah.
And the mark of a good quarterback, not only is his win and loss mark, even though that can be a little bit deceiving, but it's what he does with his team in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yeah.
And Goff has proved with those metrics alone that he can do it. He can be one of the better quarterbacks in all of football. He just doesn't get talked about because A, it's LA, and 2, it's West Coast.
Well, I wish that was the case, but so is the Seahawks, and Russell Wilson's talked about all the time.
Yeah, but again, Seattle's one of the darling of 6.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right. Well, listen, everyone. I hope you had a happy new year. Hope your 2020 is better than 2019. I know it will be for the Rams. Looking forward to the uniform changes. Lots to go. XFL is starting soon. Eric and I will be covering that. I'm Anthony.
And don't forget that the Rams aren't going to be the only team with the new uniform. The Cleveland Browns are getting a makeover too, so you'll probably see Anthony with half a Ram, half a Brown jersey on.
Dude, I just want the Browns. Look, if you're listening in Cleveland, all you need to do is go back to your 80s, and I'm late 80s. I'm talking white face mask, orange helmet, stripe, 2 brown and a white in the center. Keep the brown and the white pants, you're good. Go back to it, baby.
Hold on. This is is the Haslam's we're talking about. So you know their uniform combination is going to be yellow and purple.
Oh, be quiet. I don't want to hear this. Anyway, hey, so the Browns are getting a uniform makeover. Nice. All righty. Anything else?
No, but happy playoffs too. Playoffs, happy playoffs, and you know if you have any rooting interest in any of the teams that are going this weekend, you know hopefully they win for you.
Yeah. Good luck.
It just thinks that both of our teams are out of it, but hey, they did it to themselves.
They did it to themselves. Good luck for those of you that are fans of the Bills, the Seahawks, 49ers, I guess I'll say that, the Packers, the Eagles, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Titans, the Texans, whomever your rooting interest is this weekend, because you've been a fan for a long time. I hope you have a merry playoff run. Horns up.
They're down.
Go Rams!
Go Bears.
Boo.
Go playoffs.
Boo Bears. 85, this is not.
Correct.
Bye.